everybody.
Hey.
Recotopia, episode 37. I'm Chris Atkinson.
I'm Jeremy Scott.
And JC always asking if those Titans have it together yet. Well, they've won 4 in a row, but they still haven't gotten it together yet, in my opinion.
I agree.
At least they're not the Colts, I guess.
At least they're not the Colts.
Yeah, and until they can score, they scored 20 points in the second half all season, the Titans. 20
That's
points
not good.
in the second half all season. They need to start ramping that up. Anyway, enough sports talk. How are you guys doing out there in the chat? Once again, we have a lot of familiar faces and everything on Twitch and YouTube, and Shireen asks us, how are you both doing today? I'm doing great. How about you, Jeremy?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm excited. I've got a lot of fun stuff in the prep here that we're going to talk about today.
Okay. Do you want to kick us off with some recommends?
I'll kick
All right.
it. Recently released on Hulu an original film called Rosalind.
Okay.
This is Caitlin Dever, who I seem to recommend every other week on this show, something she's in.
Yep.
She's just awesome. She can do drama and she can do comedy. This is comedy. This is PG-13, modern language, but period setting. So think like A Knight's Tale, I guess, in terms of tone overall. She's Romeo's girlfriend, and Romeo says things to her that are straight from the play that he will later say to Juliet, like the stars on your eyes and all this stuff. And he's just a dumbass Casanova in this movie. And she can't make it. She doesn't make it to a party where she's supposed to meet up with him. And it's, of course, the famous party from the movie, The Mask Party. And he ends up meeting Juliet. And so she goes to see him and finds him saying all the same things to Juliet that he said to her. And she gets mad and decides to do revenge. And the way that it plays with the original is very similar to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, in that a lot of things that happen in this movie are things that happen in the play, but they happen for totally different reasons in this movie or different motivations.
Yeah.
If you like her, then absolutely 100%. If you like Booksmart, this is the lead girl from that. Watch this movie. You will love it. She carries it. Everybody else is pretty good. Bradley Whitford plays her dad, and it's just charming. It's just charming as hell. They use a lot of modern language. There's an F-bomb. There's a shit, but they also speak. Like, it's at one point where she's writing a series of letters to Romeo and he's not responding. And you hear her voice narrating the letters. And she's like, why do you not respond? Have you run out of quill ink? And it's just humorous in every way that it can be. I can't recommend this movie enough. It's called Rosalind and it's on Hulu. It's only on
All
Hulu.
right. Okay. All right. I haven't even heard of this, but this sounds amazing.
Yeah, I remember reading a year or two ago that Caitlin Dever signs on to play a third wheel to Romeo and Juliet in a new adaptation, and I kind of rolled my eyes because I thought we don't need another adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, but this kind of goes the other way and skewers every moment of that play, and it's really fresh. I thought it was really funny.
All right, awesome. I ventured out to the multiplex a week or so ago and took in the movie Barbarian, this I had heard quite a bit about it. Like, people, I can't remember if people were raving about it or if it was one of those where it was like got a lot of raves early on and then people started seeing it and like, it's not that good or whatever. But I really enjoyed this. This movie stars Georgina Campbell as this woman who is coming into Detroit to apply for a job, interview for a job with a well-known documentary filmmaker. She goes to an Airbnb that is out in the middle of like a basically what I guess it's just a dead neighborhood of like homes that don't really exist anymore, but except for this one that is being used as an Airbnb. And she goes to the door and she tries to find the keys and the keys aren't there. And And then she's like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to call the owner of this place or whatever, and and can't get a hold of him, but then sees a light come on in the house, and uh up she goes to knock on the door, and there's Bill Skarsgård, uh saying that he has rented out the Airbnb, and that I don't, what are we going to do here? We're going to, so he, to be the nice guy, says, eventually just says, hey, why don't you just stay here? I'll sleep on the couch. You can take the bedroom. We'll sort this out tomorrow. Yeah. So a lot of this seems very creepy and weird, and eventually she does. Yeah, and it starts off a lot like, something where you really feel like you know where this is going, right? Like, because Bill Skarsgård's he's got to be a creepy guy, or else he wouldn't do all this type of stuff. And then she goes to sleep at night and suddenly hears her door open, and she wakes up, and she's like, she goes out and she finds Bill Skarsgård on the couch. He's sleeping, but he's making noises. He's like mumbling in his sleep. He's like, what is this? Well, there's a little bit of an argument that happens. She accuses him of maybe possibly opening her door in the middle of the night. He denies it. But then she goes back to sleep. The next morning, there's a note waiting for her saying, Bill Skarsgård says, I'm going to go out and get some groceries or something like that. And she goes off to do her interview. And this movie takes a turn. I'm not sure I want to entirely divulge what happens after this, but this movie does take a turn at some point where they find more parts of the house to explore. And this house has dimensions that they did not realize when they walked in. And at some point, there's a cutting point where where the movie splits into basically two halves. And Justin Long becomes our main character. And Justin Long is a character who is playing an actor who has just recently been accused of being sexually aggressive on a set, and he's about to get canceled, and he's about to get, he's going to get arrested. He's going to go to jail, all this type of stuff. He flees Hollywood and he goes to Detroit, where he just so happens to own this house that the Airbnb is, where the Airbnb is. And he goes there and starts trying to figure out what is he going to do. Now he tells his best buddy, who's like, come on, bro, you can tell me what really happened with that girl, blah, blah, blah. And of course he tells a bullshit story where he's not 100% clean, but he's really not any percent clean. You can tell by the way he tells the story that he did the things that the woman accused him of. But he goes back to the house figuring out, well, how am I going to get money? And so he's going around the house trying to look for stuff, and he finds out, this is a pretty humorous section of the movie where he finds all this stuff that Georgina Campbell and Bill Skarsgård found in the earlier part of the movie, and it's like, oh wow, more square footage for this house that I can sell. And he's going through all this scary ass shit with a tape measure. Anyway, there is something else going on in the house that I have not revealed, of course, because I want you to know. I want you to figure this thing out for yourself, but it's going to make you sit there and wonder for a while. Then you're going to be like, oh shit, okay, that's more information, but now what the fuck? So you're going to do that a bunch. And this movie is pretty genuinely scary, and it has some pretty good social commentary to it. And overall, a really satisfying horror movie, I would say. So it's a completely different one. You always got to give points to the movie that makes you think it's going one way, and it never goes the way you think it's going to. It never goes that way. You're always like, oh, okay, this is the movie where the movie does this, and it's like, nope, not doing that. So
yeah, that's always awesome.
So I highly recommend Barbarian. Hope I can talk to other people about this soon, because it's a discuss worthy movie.
All right.
So
Oh,
anyway,
that's awesome.
mm-hmm,
I for my second recommend, I'm going to give you a couple of tools that you may well know about, but you may not. And just in case you don't,
mm-hmm,
I'm going to give them to you because I do a lot of writing. I write a lot for YouTube videos, and I write a lot of books and short
mm-hmm,
stories and
mm-hmm.
um, two websites that I visit that are free resources that I find invaluable that I'm probably on every single day. The first one you may know about, thesaurus.com,
Yep.
because we all have words that we lean into a little more than we should. The other one, as the graphic shows you, is rhymezone.com.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this comes
Yep.
in super handy for the YouTube videos that we write because a
Yep.
lot of times we do rhyming based jokes or alliteration but I use both of these websites for the videos and for my book writing. And if you do any kind of writing or want to, this will greatly expand your arsenal of words and eventually your vocabulary at the ready. I've been using them for years. I don't think I've ever talked about them much, but rhymezone.com,
I
thesaurus.com.
I also use these quite a bit. There have been some times where I've been writing scripts though, and you're like, all right, I need to come up with that perfect
Yeah.
like other word for this so that I can get a rhyme or a pun or something like that in. And man, some words just aren't rhymable. Some words just aren't thesaurusable. Um, but for the most part, it's a huge help because a lot of times you do sit there and you wear out the same word quite a bit, or you need something, you need a rhyme and you can't come up with one, and it gives you all the different syllables and all that. Like it's like a 2 syllable, a 3 syllable, a 4 syllable. So I really do enjoy those sites, and happy to hear that you use them as well.
I love rhymezone because it'll give you in bold the really accurate rhymes, but then it gives you
Mhm.
in unbolded text kind of like Eminem rhymes,
Right,
like
right, yeah.
where he rhymes orange with porridge. It'll give you
Mm,
kind of those similar rhymes. So man, I feel
mhm.
like whatever you write, these two websites would be really helpful. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Um, I opened up Shutter a few days ago to watch. I was looking for just anything basically. So like, give me something. I want to get something that's pretty highly recommended. And one of them that had 5 red skulls on it. I was like, oh
Mm.
yeah. But the IMDb is a 6.5. But you know what? In Horrorland, the 6.5 is pretty damn good. But it's called Bloody Hell is what I ended up picking out here, and this is an interesting story. It's a it's somewhat horror, I guess, but for the most part, the main character Ben O'Toole finds himself in at a bank, and he's about to flirt with this uh, cashier that he likes and everything, and just as he's about to start his flirtations, the bank gets robbed. People come in, guns. There's like 5 or 6 of these guys, and he while he's hiding and while he's waiting to get his wallet stolen, he's ready to just he's just sitting there. He has this sort of like this, I don't know, this doppelganger guy that's in his head that talks to him. It's him, doppelganger. It's really him. It's to the guy playing 2 roles essentially, who's telling him, "Hey, kill them all. Just kill them." And so he manages. There's a gun, I think, in one of these handbags that just happens to be next to him, and he pulls out a gun and he shoots the first guy, and then he just goes on a rampage. Next scene we see is he's in court being because an innocent person did get killed during his heroic attempt to save everybody. So he's getting blamed for this innocent person getting killed.
Hmm.
And so he has to spend 8 years in prison because of this. And when he gets out, he's a pseudo celebrity who has paparazzi following him around and everything. And he just wants to get away. While he was in prison, he used some sort of spitball tactic at a map to try to find some place that he would like to go when he gets out of jail.
Mm.
And Finland kept coming up
Oh.
every time he spits over there. So it's Finland he ends up going to. But he notices that there's people following him around when he goes to the airport. And he doesn't know what it's all about, but he's a pseudo celebrity, so people have interest in him, and he just figures it's part of the territory. But then when he lands in Finland, he gets kidnapped, and he is taken to this house where when he wakes up, he is missing part of his leg, and
Jesus Christ.
he's hanging from a basement, and he's just, has just like ropes tied around his wrists and everything. He quickly finds out he is in this house with this family, who are who have been killing people to feed their monster son, basically, is what it is. They have a somewhat normal looking family, but there's this one member of the family that they do not show at any time during the whole thing. We just hear growls and yells and stuff like that all the way throughout. One day, one of the smaller children comes down to the basement to see the person that they have hanging up in their basement, and he gets a little bit too close, and our hero of the story grabs him with his legs and holds him hostage until somebody can come down and try to save him, and then he can use that as leverage to get out. There's a funny little conversation he has with himself in the basement where he's talking about, like, it's like, how did the guy in Misery get out of his situation? And he goes, well, he wrote the book that Annie wanted, and he could always hold that book in as leverage for insurance if she ever tried to kill him and everything. And he goes, so the guy in his mind is like, well, we need to get some insurance. He's like, he says, he ends up killing her or hitting her over the head with a typewriter or whatever, and that's how he gets out at the end. And he goes, well, we need to get something for some insurance. And the guy's like, yeah, and we need a typewriter. So anyway, they the only other woman of the house, a young woman who's like, her name is Alia, comes down when he's got this kid in his, in a leg lock or whatever. She doesn't really believe in the thing that the family's doing with like feeding people to their brother and everything. So she has a soft spot for him, and wants to help him escape, but she's afraid that if she helps him escape, that they'll both be in trouble. And that's basically the premise of this movie. It's really funny, and there's there's a couple of gross moments in here, but overall, I think this is a fun movie. I think you would like this, Jeremy. I may have done a terrible job describing it for you, but I think you would actually like this. The dialogue that he has with himself in this movie is the fun part of the whole thing.
Okay.
So yeah, I think you would like that.
I will put it on the list. Absolutely. It sounds intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and then we have Patrick even says, yes, bloody hell is awesome, he says.
That's two opinions I trust. Right there.
But I may have botched. When I talk about these movies, I don't want to give away. I want you guys to have the surprise that I have when I'm like watching it, and so a lot of times I'm sitting there describing a movie and I'm like, I don't want you to know that. I don't want you to know that. So, and then I end up thinking, well, maybe I didn't, maybe I undersold it by the end. Anyway.
No, you made it sound very interesting. So,
okay, good. All right. Well, you ready for the big recommend?
Let's do the big. I'm ready.
All right. So today's big recommend is The Descent. And it's funny. I meant to go and watch the alternate ending to this movie that everybody told me was better, but I didn't get around to seeing the alternate ending. From what I understand, it's different in that it's like kind of we find out it's been a vision the whole time. It's been like a dream or something like that.
No, not quite. I actually think the alternate ending, I haven't seen it. I read what it is, and I think it's way better than the ending we get. The ending we get, I mean, if you're listening to the show, you either have seen the movie or you don't care about being spoiled. The ending we get, she gets out, right?
Yep.
And passes out, and then she's alive, right? And
Yeah.
in the extended ending, after she's like rescued or whatever, she wakes back up in the cave, and her rescue and getting out was a vision. And then she hears the crawlers coming towards her, and it goes to credits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, which I think would have been a much more satisfying ending, but they were concerned that U.S. audiences would find it too depressing
Yeah.
because
Well, I think
either
it
go ahead.
may have even gotten test screened or whatever, and that's how they. I don't know. Maybe they just thought that on their own, that it's just too depressing.
I mean,
don't know.
there's only two options. Either they massively underestimate American filmgoers' appetite, or American filmgoers are pansies and can't handle a down ending.
I guess we've seen so many different kinds of movies. I don't know why like one movie decides, well, we have to have this ending. Like, we can handle it, guys. We can handle it. But anyway, the movie is part, there's in parts deliverance in this. There's in parts I even heard a score that sounded like The Thing going through this, that the
Mhm.
dum, dum, dum sound, whatever. But anyway, this is about a bunch of women who all have the thirst to go caving, and now most of them want to go to something that's reasonably safe, right? But they don't want to go to the touristy one either. So they want to do something that's somewhat difficult, but not have a bunch of people around and all of that. But so they enlist this girl Juno to find the cave for them.
AKA the devil.
Yeah, she is the devil in this, and we find we kind of know early on, if you've ever seen a movie before, you know that there's something between her, and we know that there's something between her and her best friend's husband in this. There's like some meaningful looks, some weirdness. He's
Mhm.
acting strange on the way home from this whitewater rafting trip. She even says, boy, you're acting strange, just before
Yeah.
yet another horror movie starting off with a big wreck
I was
that
gonna
kills the
email you and
family.
ask if this was on purpose because I was like, "What again? Come on!"
Yeah, this is almost exactly what The Changeling does. Only it's the mother who survives. And instead of finding another house rented out by a historical society, she just goes caving with her best friends. That's what she does.
Mhm.
But anyway, they it's been some time. I can't remember how much time. She is in the hospital. She finds out her husband's dead. Her daughter's dead. Her daughter, who was just about to turn 5, is dead. And there's a period of mourning, and I can't remember how long they say has passed between this time.
I'm not
Maybe a
sure they
year.
do. I was looking for it, but
Mm-hmm.
I got the sense it was about a year because they have these conversations like, "How's she doing?" "Well, she's here." It still feels
Mm-hmm.
like it's a fresh memory, but yeah, I don't know that they said exactly.
Yeah. Well, they all so whatever. It's time for them all to come together and have a big moment. And Juno, really for reasons probably more personal than what she says they are, she picks this cave that they all think is this sort of touristy cave that people go to and everything. But they find out pretty quickly that this place, there's not really anything going on here at all. And when they get there's a point where they get trapped in this cave, and they're like, um so you said you put in a report that we're coming to this cave, right? And he says, well, this isn't the cave that you all wanted to go to. And 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 yeah, it's like she is an absolutely infuriating person whose motives are always like, what is she trying to do here? she trying to like cleanse herself of guilt? Is she trying to, what is she trying to do throughout this whole movie? But yeah, Juno is kind of the devil in this movie. There's not any like, it doesn't seem like there's any redeeming qualities about her by the end of this movie. But this movie doesn't get right into the horror right away. The horror kind of like, is just the things that they have to do, especially if you're not experienced cavers, which I would never do any of this shit that's in this movie at all, ever. Would never be in this situation.
No.
That where there's a point where they have to go across this huge cavern that's like got this tremendous drop. They throw, it's funny, they already know it's a steep drop. They know that it's not one that you'd want to fall down, but somebody throws a rock down in it anyway, and it takes like 10 seconds for the rock. You hear the sound, and she goes, thanks a lot, I needed that, or whatever.
Thanks for that.
Yeah,
awesome.
And so yeah, so there's a point where is it Juno that takes charge on this? Juno like goes up to put all the little pitons, or who else was it?
It's
this is one thing that bugs me about this movie. I mean, you have to keep it dark and and everything, but the characters are not like,
Juno's
not
the last
outside
one
of
across.
Oh, Juno's the last one. But somebody goes across and starts sticking all these pitons in the like the rock, and then like puts a rope across, then and then they can all slide across. They can all like rope themselves over to the other side and everything. During the middle of this climb, one of the women sees an old one that's there, and that's scary enough that you see like this old one that you think is an abandoned cave or whatever. But they've quickly come to realize this is probably 100 years old. It's not, it's probably nothing recent, but this pisses off Juno because that means somebody who's gone into this cave before has already been here and has already named it, and I wanted to name it for myself.
God, I hate her so much.
And so yeah, they get across there, and then there's a point where they have to go through this like very narrow tunnel, which in the trivia section, apparently it was so tight and slippery they called it the vagina. the actors called it the vagina. I love that. They have to crawl through this thing, and like seriously, Jeremy, I know you're a lot like me when it comes to stuff like this. There's so much nope going on in this movie. So much nope. Like, can I just lie down and not and whatever, and just you guys can like find somebody to save me later?
Dude, sleeping in the cabin, it was a nope for me, man. Let's a spider haven. Like, let's say nothing of the caves.
Yeah. They try to go through this narrow tunnel, and there's a point where Sarah, the main character of this movie, gets stuck. And then there's like, an attempt to try to get her to calm down, because I guess there's some sort of claustrophobia or something going on there. And then they find out that they hear some rumbling, and they know that there's a cave-in about to happen. They have to get out to the other side before it's too late. And then that cave-in happens. Now they like, well, now we're fucked. Where do we go now? That's the only place we could even, is there another opening out of this place? We don't know.
Is there air? You don't know.
Yeah. Is there air? You don't know. So yeah, that it's all like, okay, where are we going to go next? And they're having that's the whole horror of this first part of this movie is, are they going to be able to find a place that's to get out of this thing? Like, that's scary enough. And are they, what are they going to have to navigate to get to that place? Because it's it's for most part, what it seems like, an unexplored cave. So like, there's not any like real way there's not anything mapped out for them to know. Not too long though, we start seeing hints of other creatures being running around in this cave. There's a point where Sarah shines a light down and sees one of these creatures way far down in the distance, and a creature scurries off and runs away. and she says that she sees something. Of course, Juno says, "You didn't see anything because I'm
Juno is the devil.
secretly the devil in this movie." Um, and then but then yeah, exactly. And I fucked your husband. There's a point though where this is one of the best sort of scary reveals there's ever been in a movie. And I remember this was when I was living in New York. This was one of my favorite things to walk into uh during, because to see crowd reaction is when they're shining that light around, and then we just kind of get a glimpse of one of those creatures behind them, right behind them, as they're walking around. It's one of those just, it's just a stunningly scary moment, because you don't, it's a jump scare, but it's a well done jump scare to see something like that, because you're always kind of expecting it, but there's no sound, or there's nothing that like tips you off to when it's going to happen, because so much doesn't happen in the way of like real horror stuff, like regular horror stuff, that you're always expecting to just kind of always be towards the edge and never get to see the creature. And then finally it's on. Creatures are attacking. They have adapted, they have evolved to be able to not only just go around this cave blindly, but they can also climb all over the place just using their hands and feet and stuff. And they are horrifying, ghoulish looking things that are probably the result of many years of inbreeding and things of that nature. We're in the Appalachians. I don't think that's I don't think that's very subtle at all. We are definitely seeing like creatures who are forms of inbreeding here that have gone so far that they are now just like barely human. Um, that's that. It's them trying to survive these things all the way through, and then of course there's some revelations yet to be uncovered throughout this. Sarah doesn't know about the cheating yet, but she's gonna find out through a very weird way, a very weird, strange way, where she has the one of the other friends has like a token of some sort that Juno, that her husband gave Juno, and it has this inscription on it, and and uh and she ends up like, yeah, Juno at one point like is killing all these creatures down below, and then suddenly one of the friends sneaks up on her. I don't know why you would do this in the middle of a rampage like this, but like runs up to her, and then she turns around and stabs this woman in the neck, and she didn't know it was her friend, but like at the same time, why are you coming up on her like that while she's battling all these dudes? Oh my god, that was like crazy. Um yeah, there's some revelations to be had, and some reckonings to be had, and everything. Anyway, it's very scary fun. I don't like all the flash cutting of editing that goes throughout this, but for the most part, this is a great movie.
I appreciate a movie that has the courage to wait until halfway through to even tell me it's a creature feature. Like, this movie sets up as though the claustrophobia and the getting out of the cave is the horror. And then it gets bloody as hell. Like, I was shocked how much blood this movie has. Like, and then Sarah falls into a pool of blood and stands up out of that pool. And I was like, even more blood. There's so much blood. I did a lot of reading on the trivia section. Sounds like you did too. I appreciated that this guy went full Saving Private Ryan with his cast and kept the people who played the crawlers, whom he insisted be real actors and not stunt people. He wanted them to develop characters. He kept them separate from the female cast, even during lunch. And the girls never knew what the creatures even looked like until they shot that first scene where they get attacked. And they were so scared, they screamed and ran out of the cave, and they were laughing by the time they hit the entrance. There's a lot of interesting things about the making of this movie, but he said The Thing is one of his main influences when he was making this. This guy's had an interesting career. This is Neil Marshall. He directed 2 of my favorite Game of Thrones episodes.
Yeah, that's
He's
right.
been doing mostly TV, good TV, since the mid 2000s. He's done Game of Thrones, Constantine, Hannibal, Westworld, Lost in Space on Netflix. And then he did that Hellboy movie that was not very well received. Um, but I appreciated the care he took, and I think that is why this movie is good. It's not just let's just do a cave slasher. There was a lot of thought put into it. Each of the women is from a different country.
Hmm.
Um, I just I haven't seen many movies like this. It made my eventual double feature choice difficult. Um, but yeah, I loved it. I've only seen it twice now, but I had forgotten almost all of it, and
Yeah,
I
same
definitely
here.
forgot how bloody it
I had
was.
only seen it. I had only seen it when it came out, and I just remember it being really good. And it had over the years, it's built up quite a following too. So I was glad to get back to it. I only thing, like I said, the biggest thing for me that bothered me a bit is we're already in the dark. It's already hard to see. There were so many cuts in the battle scenes in this and everything, and it's like sometimes where you're just like, there's not a need for this shot that you just inserted
Right.
here. There's no need for any of this. um but that's it's sort of a small qualm overall, because I like everything leading up to it. And but once it starts getting a little bit furious in the action and everything, it's like, oh god, cut.
Yeah.
Apparently he did a movie called Dog Soldiers before this that was an all male cast.
Hmm.
And when the Descent came up, he was thinking of having like male and female all the way through, but like his agent or somebody said, why don't you do all female in this one? This would be like a just a counter punch to your last movie that you did. So that's what he ended up going that way. Of course, there is one male character, and he is an asshole and is dead in the first 5 minutes. So,
well, and it's his fault, man. He's looking at her and not the road for like 8 full seconds as the car drifts over, and then the oncoming driver is clearly not paying attention because they just
yeah,
stay exactly where they are. He deserved that copper rod through the head.
yeah, I would say so. Every time I see a wreck like this in movies, I'm like, is this how these things happen? I mean, I'm sure that there are some wrecks that happen this way, but it seems like there's this just a complete lack of awareness at all on some of these things by both parties. Like you said, like the other guy isn't looking either. He's just kind of like doop doop doop.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, looking in the chat, some people are talking about the unearned jump scares that are in this. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the movie does kind of, once that reveal happens, and it's just all a bunch of it. Once it starts getting into the the fighting and everything, that's where it's kind of like loses a little bit of steam for me. Maybe it gathers steam for some of you, but I don't know. It's the only part of the movie. Is that what you got? Is that how you came out of it?
Yeah.
Or it was like I loved the stillness and quietness of that first 50 minutes or so, and enjoyed the mystery of what those creatures were. And then once it starts getting into that frenzy, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is a completely different mood. So
It absolutely
um
is. I love movies that give you 2 movies in one, especially when you
mm,
don't. There was something creature-ish coming this time, but the first time through, there's no reason for you to think there's going to be fucking horrific vampire-looking, blood-sucking
mm.
creatures down there.
Yeah.
Cave is plenty scary.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So now, are you ready
Hmm.
for the secret double feature for this movie?
I'm not ready. I told you it'll probably end up in the outtakes, but I told you before the show that I had a list of like 11 or 17, a big long list of possibles, because this movie is so unique
Mm-hmm.
that I could look for survival type adventure goes wrong movies. I could look for bloody horror creature movies. I could look for something that has supernatural elements or something that doesn't. Oh, look at all these suggestions.
Mhm.
The one that I want to do is a little too on the nose, but I'm still going to do it because I think it's the right answer. And that's Alien. Um,
Okay.
because you have a group of people going to do what they believe to be one task. They find something supernatural. Um, it turns into a horror movie about partway through with creatures that are scary. And there's somebody in the main cast, aka Ian Holm, who is not telling the whole truth to everybody else about what's going
Yeah.
on. And then there's also only one survivor at the end. And so for all those reasons, I really feel like Alien is the perfect matchup. I wanted to go with Wrong Turn because of that whole inbred thing. And
Yeah.
the first Wrong Turn movie is fairly similar in that it's just these kids trying to have an adventure, and they take a wrong turn, and inbred hillbillies who kill people. But
Yep.
I really do think that Alien is the best double feature for this movie, and it matches up a lot of different ways. Female empowerment, um, yeah. So Alien, that's my super secret double
I
feature.
like it. I like it a lot, and I like your reasoning behind it. It seemed like in this era there were a lot of this what I would call redneck horror, where you had Wrong Turn, and you had the Hills Have Eyes remake, and you had it was just like every horror movie was like everybody's going out to the countryside, and guess what? They're not too happy to see city folk wandering around out here, and they will kill you because of it.
Yes, indeed.
There was a lot of that going on back in this era. But all right, well, what is next week's homework?
All right, everybody. We're going to one of my favorite 2001 movies that people I know have mostly never seen. It's called The Score, and it stars,
Mm,
I'd argue, four of the greatest actors of all time: Robert De Niro, Ed Norton, Marlon Brando, and Angela Bassett. There are
mhm.
other people in this movie. They don't matter. These four are doing the heavy lifting. And this is a heist movie. This is Frank Oz directed this movie of all people.
Yeah.
And De Niro is a proper thief. He lives, I think it's Montreal where this movie is set, and he lives, a nice life. He runs a jazz club. He doesn't steal from his own town. He doesn't get caught. You could make a case that this is the same character from Heat, only in an alternate universe where he never got caught and shot at the end, um, because he's that smart about how he goes about heisting. And Ed Norton is this guy at a museum who has found something he wants to steal, and Brando hooks them up together, and they come up with a plan. That's all I'm going to tell you. If you have stars, this is where you can watch this for free. Then, if you have premium subscriptions at Roku, Hulu, Sling TV, Amazon Prime, or Philo, you can watch it for free on all those, but those would have to be premium subscriptions, which I think means you're paying extra to have stars through those subscriptions. But this is a great movie, and I can't wait to talk about it.
All right, awesome. I have never seen The Score. I know that surprises you, but I have never seen it. So I'm looking forward to this because I have never seen this, and I have heard many people over the years say that they liked it. So I'm down with it. And yes, Obina's like, excellent, non-horror. Yes, we're out of the October horror stuff now, so we're going to be recommending more non-horror stuff out of this next few months.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have gone through a horror month though. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, now to move on, we go to stuff that's not horror, and I'm all about it. All right, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And we, in fact, have time for a question or two.
Mhm.
I don't know why I just turned into Dr. Seuss. What is the most famous movie that you have physically visited a set location for, excluding Washington, D.C., which I think is weird and unfair?
Mhm.
What do you say?
Chicago, a lot of different spots where the Dark Knight was shot. Very familiar places in the Dark Knight. Um, especially the place where the mayor's office supposedly is. Like that's one of the main. I think that's like one of the main centers of Chicago. Is that place where they filmed that. You may know better than I do, but that like big plaza area where they usually have a big statue
Yeah,
of some sort.
yeah,
They I think that's where they shot that mayor's office thing where they hang the fake Batman from the thing and
yeah.
all that. And then there's like a whole bunch of other just different locations that you can see on the street during the Dark Knight that I've been through on that. There's a really unique building that's kind of like a parking garage that's got that spiral
Yeah.
looking thing that's in there. So like, yeah, a lot of stuff there. That's probably the most famous filming location, even though it's just the city. If you're in Chicago, you've been to that filming
Yeah.
location. So.
Well, and one of my answers is Central Park, and I'm like, I've probably only been 300,000 or 400,000 movies that have a Central Park set. But for me, we ate, you and I, when we were in New York once at Tavern on the Green, which is a restaurant right on the edge of Central Park that
Mhm.
In the Muppets Take Manhattan, the
Yeah,
Muppets go by outside that restaurant.
and
Um,
Ghostbusters too. I think right, like one of those was not Ghostbusters. Maybe it's no. I think it is
it might be
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
Where Rick Moranis comes up to when he's being chased down by the Hound, and I think that may be it, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it's
No,
definitely Muppets Take Manhattan.
that's good stuff. And then again, you and I, most of my travel in the last 10 years has been with Chris.
Mhm.
The Golden Gate Bridge and the Redwood National Forest that we got to see
Yeah,
that appeared in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Um, so those are my answers. That's good stuff.
JC in one of the questions asked, "Not the Last Castle, Chris?" Because I actually did physically visit that set. It's not a famous movie though. It's the only reason there's a caveat in that question. Like, what is the most famous movie that you physically visited a set location for? But yeah, like the Last Castle, I was an extra on that movie for 7 days out of a 1 month in the summer of 2001, and that's at that Nashville prison that that's no longer being used here, but was once on the final list of being one of the Shawshank, being in the
Yes, it was.
Shawshank prison. But some assholes in Ohio got it.
Bastards.
But anyway, yeah, that's those
Let's do
good
another
answers.
question. Let's do
Mhm.
another question. What movie did you love as a child, but you are too afraid as an adult to watch it because it might be terrible?
One movie that I haven't seen. I always talk about the movies that I used to see when we got HBO, and it was like this string of movies from 1984 that I remember watching a million times. Never Ending Story, The Natural, all these.
Mm.
One that I used to watch all the time that I haven't seen since the 80s is Cloak and Dagger.
Ooh.
The Henry Thomas, like this is. I don't know if this is his direct follow up to ET, but he's in it, and it's about a video game that's got like secret codes in it or some shit. And but I just remember like really enjoying it as a kid, but I have this fear that I will watch it now and be like, oh, that's not a good movie at all or whatever.
Mm.
But I've ordered the 4K that's coming out for it, so maybe I'll realize when I will eventually watch this again and know.
Well, I have two answers. Only one I put in the notes because I'm lazy, but that one is Candle Shoe. I'm pretty sure this is a fairly good movie. The internet
Hmm.
seems to rate it at about 70%.
Hmm.
Young Jodie Foster, David Niven, Helen Hayes. It's basically a family-friendly treasure hunt mystery. This girl goes to live with this rich family. I must have watched this movie 100 times when I was a kid. I had it on a VHS tape. I watched it over and over and over again, but I have not seen it since high school, maybe even before
Hmm.
then. I have no idea. And then the other one that I haven't watched any of them longer is Disney's The Black Hole. Like,
Oh yeah.
I adored that movie, but
Hmm.
the internet tells me that I was wrong, and I haven't seen it in 40 years probably. I was maybe 7. when I saw it.
Mhm.
But I thought that movie was the bee's knees, and now I'm too afraid.
I don't think I've seen either of those movies.
I'm pretty sure our friend Jonathan has seen Candle Shoe. But
Mhm.
yeah, two very important movies in my youth. They were very important to me in my youth.
Yeah.
Um,
A couple of them that are mentioned here in the chat. Josh says The Secret of Nim, which is another movie that I watched a million times back in the day. I have not seen it since the 80s, but that's the old Don Bluth stuff. Uh, but uh, but I bet I get the sense that movie still holds up a little bit. Jagged says The Little Rascals. You mean that one in the 90s? Oh my god. I don't think I like that. I was like 17 when that Little Rascals movie came out. Was at a theater that played it. I don't remember it being very good. And plus Donald Trump was in that movie.
yeah.
Short Circuit 2, yeah, The Last
Yeah.
Unicorn. JC says
Yeah.
odd choice, but 1953's Titanic. I don't know if you're trolling. I don't know if you're trolling.
Probably not. Probably not. He's a Titanic buff. I'm sure he's seen it.
And then Nolan says my favorite movie when I was a kid was Daddy Daycare, which I don't think I'm going to enjoy as much as an adult. Yeah, as an adult, I saw this movie as an adult for the first time, and I was like, nope, 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 no, I don't like that at all. Dark Crystal, maybe. Yeah, you know, weird. We sent Dark Crystal a few years ago, and like that was the first time I had seen it since childhood or whatever, and I was like, this is still pretty good, but it's also not nearly as good as I remember. So,
all right, let's do one more. JC Davis says that he was 100% serious about the Titanic.
Okay, good.
Take one of your favorite movies. Sorry, producer, I skipped a question. It's my bad. Then ruin it with an era-specific recasting, cast, director, writer, score, whatever you want.
Okay. All right. So people who follow the ins and outs of us know our favorite movies. Mine is Back to the Future. So Back to the Future, starring Finn Wolfhard as Marty.
I love it already.
Now, look, this doesn't mean I don't like these actors. I just think putting these actors in these roles would ruin the movie.
I get it.
Leonardo DiCaprio as Doc Brown, Ezra Miller as George, Timothy Chalamet as Biff, and Maddie Ziegler as Lorraine. Directed by Colin Trevorrow, written by Aaron Sorkin.
Oh my
God. Score by Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL.
That's the only one you had to say to really ruin it. Let's just put Junkie XL on there.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
There you go. Like that's one of those that I could see it where you have a producer situation where you get all the wrong people for everything and somehow it turns into like this amazingness, but
okay. All right. I could do this question every week. My favorite movie, as you all know, probably, hopefully, is The Matrix. So let's ruin it slowly. First, let's put Will Smith in there instead of Keanu, as was originally almost the plan. Because I think that instantly makes that movie jokier. Let's cast Kevin Costner as Morpheus.
Yeah.
And then let's have Lena Dunham write it. Let's have Michael Bay direct it. Let's have Mumford and Sons do the score.
Oh my God. The Matrix written by Lena Dunham would like and directed by Michael Bay, like that.
I think they work well together.
Like seriously. I'm speechless. I would wonder, like, Michael Bay probably doesn't like, I don't know, does he doesn't adhere to the script that often, I wouldn't think.
It's possible.
So maybe he would take elements of it. I don't know. He would try to find ways to make it even worse. I guess take some of the worst tendencies of Lena Dunham and like amplify them even more, probably. Oh my God, that's a wretched movie.
I
That's
just
gonna be a
love seeing
wretched
Kevin
movie.
Costner doing that whole speech about the Matrix that Morpheus gives about the
Oh,
real world versus.
that would be insane.
Oh my god.
All right, maybe one more.
Yes, one more. Hang on one second. I didn't close my file. You
Mhm.
can't prove anything. Let's just do that one we almost did. What live
You
action
didn't
movie?
see anything.
What live action movie would have worked better as an animated film?
Ready Player One, I think, would have
That's the
been
best
better.
answer. That's the best
Um,
answer.
I think one of the things that I don't like about Ready Player One is that it's already trying to be animated in some ways because there's so much CGI
Mhm.
thrown at you. With an animated version, you wouldn't have to worry about how things look like weird and CGI. You would just have it already animated and everything. And you would be able to do a lot more than you did in the movie, and you maybe adapt the book a little bit more faithfully than you did. I don't know. It feels like a movie that would be better as an animation. So
No, I think that's the great answer. I feel silly about mine now, but G.I. Joe, any of those G.I.
yeah,
Joe
GI Joe,
movies,
sure, why not? Yeah.
because the action is ridiculous in those movies anyway. It started out as a cartoon, and I think Into the Spider-Verse has taught us that animated films can be mega hits.
Hmm.
And so I know that Guillermo del Toro has said that
Toro.
his stop motion Pinocchio that's coming up is meant to be for grown-ups to show that animation is just a medium. It's not specifically age group targeted. So I'm curious to see
Hmm.
what he does with that.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
I agree.
All right. All right, everybody. This is going to be the end of this episode. Next week's homework is the score. So yeah, looking forward to that. Thank you guys in chat once
Mhm.
again for coming out and giving us your thoughts about things, and we really appreciate it that you come every week, and happy to see you every week. So,
Yep.
all right, and there's Aaron.
Something there.
Hello. Yeah, thanks guys. I did see a couple first time chatters joining in on the chat.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. Appreciate, of course, all the follows and subs. Means the world to us. We are going to raid if you're on Twitch. So if you're watching on Twitch and you want to raid, we are going to do that. We're going to head over to our friends at Moco Made, who are live right now. So I'll go ahead and start that raid. Thanks again for watching, checking this out. We love and appreciate you guys. And once that raid is ready to go, we'll head that direction. Ready to raid. We're raiding. All right.
All right.
Not the
Bye-bye.
character from whatever video game has Raiden in it.
Mhm.
'Cause
Yes.
I
Mortal
don't
Kombat.
remember.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mortal Kombat. All right. See you
Yeah.
guys. Bye.
All right.